I think we're ready to jump into it here, Alex. Our ADP fades of the 2020 preseason. I'll let you start it off.
All right, Steph. So for my first ADP fade, I'm going to go with Chris Carson for the Seattle Seahawks. And he was a little bit hyped up going into last season, and he paid off. He was the running back 12 in full PPR formats. This year, he has dropped back to the running back 18. But for some reason, every single mock draft I've done this offseason, I don't think I've ended up with Chris Carson one time. And part of that might be in my head. I know he's recovering from that hip injury. He's expected to be at full strength when the season starts. But with this weird year where we haven't really had as much visibility to what players are doing in the offseason, they say he's going to be at full strength, but who really knows? So Chris Carson for me, as the RB18, I just can't quite get on board. And part of the reason is the receiving ability that he has. I don't think it's very high. Last season, he had 37 receptions and 2 receiving touchdowns, which is actually nothing crazy for the running back position, but he's not even really a mediocre pass catcher. So I expect that number to come down. They bring in DJ Dallas in the draft in the 4th round. They bring in Carlos Hyde in free agency as well, which I know Rashad Penny is probably going to miss a good chunk of the season. So maybe drafting Dallas, bringing in Carlos Hyde is just adding depth to that running back room. But either way, the fact that they're spending capital on these guys concerns me about that backfield. It concerns me about what they actually believe in Chris Carson and Rashad Penny and their health. So for me, I think DJ Dallas comes in, might chip into some of that receiving work right away. Carlos Hyde, over an 1,000-yard rusher last season. He might vulture some touchdowns and some carries as well. Last season, Chris Carson was 5th in the NFL in carries with 278, which is awesome. And if he repeats as, 275 plus carries, I think Carson's going to return value at that RB18. I just don't know that he's going to get there. And for me, I do see a world where this run-heavy Seahawks offense continues to feed Chris Carson as their feature back. Maybe he does get close to the reception number. He gets the 7 or 8 touchdowns again this season, and he's a top 15 running back. That's in the realm of possibility. I'm not saying it's impossible for that to happen, but for me, I just like guys around his ADP way more than I like him. I'm going to take Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon around his ADP every single time. I just love their upside and their chance of being fantasy relevant at that draft level at the running back position this season. And I might even take a shot on Jonathan Taylor over a guy like Chris Carson. I think the upside is huge for Taylor. And Carson, I could really see it going either way. So, look, I don't necessarily hate Carson as a player, but there's just a lot of things in Seattle and some things they've done this offseason in the running back room that kind of sketch me out with that offense. I don't really know what it's going to look like. We're hearing all these things like Russell Wilson could finally throw the ball 550 plus times this year. So, I don't know. I'm out on Carson. If I'm wrong on him, I'm happy to be wrong about him, but I'm just probably not going to have him on a lot of my teams.
There's 2 big points that every single, elite, a guy who could finish as top 5 at the running back position needs to have. And one is an elite offensive line, and the other is pass catching volume. And I don't know if Carson can hit either of those. So, I agree with you to a point. I'm probably a little bit higher on him than you are. And that's reflected in our rankings. You guys can check that out at doublemovesports.com. We have all of our rankings in there for every single position. But I'm with you to a degree. I would take, I think, a Melvin Gordon over Chris Carson. The biggest thing for Carson is, like you said, the health and then the volume. I mean, when he gets the volume, he's good. He's a physical, sight to behold when he's on the field. He looks fantastic, breaking off big runs here. But, yeah, the health has been a concern. That's kind of always been his thing. Everybody has question marks in that RB2 tier. I even look at a guy like, James Conner there as well. I'd kind of relate him to Carson, but I'm with you. I think there are safer options, and I'd probably look the other way at that point. Maybe wait a round or 2 and grab Jonathan Taylor there. So I don't think this is like a death sentence for him in any way.
I don't know. He has the hip issue, and he's had back issues in the past. I just don't trust him to stay on the field for 16 games. And if he falls a couple rounds, and maybe if everyone else in my league is out on Chris Carson as well, I'm happy to take him as a value, maybe a round or 2 later than he's going. RB18 is just too early for me. I have him at 27, but if he was sitting there as the 23rd or 24th running back off the board, I might consider taking him at that point, but he's just not a player I'm finding myself ending up with any mock draft so far this season.